Hello guys, welcome back to From the Bench. My name is David Reed and today we'll be continue part 2 with Danny here. How are you, mate?
I'm very well, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Lincoln finally scored. It's taken nearly 3 months in the league to get a goal. It's taken Teddy Bishop since August to score more than since 3 goals now.
He's a good player, though, isn't
He's versatile, by the way. He's played everywhere this season, but
Yeah.
the state of the team at the weekend were playing Freddie Draper, who's our striker. He was playing left back.
Was he?
Yeah, we've only got one registered centre back we have, and it's what's his name? It's Lewis Monsford, because obviously we lost Jackson to injury.
Yeah.
Walsh is, we know where Walsh is, and
But you always, like, the thing is with Lincoln, you always seem to, whenever I talk to you every week about it, you always seem to have not just 1 or 2, you seem to have like 5 to 10 injuries every week. I know there's some long-term injuries and things like that, but people always seem to get injured at that football club, don't they?
I think the problem was, when Mike Glasson in his second season with us, he would run all the players for 90 minutes, make no subs or whatever, so he would have a high tempo game,
Yeah.
and after about 20 games through, the players are dropping away. Like when you look at Scully, like Hopper's out again, Joe Walsh, he's only played 27 games for Lincoln in 2 years, and it's not a good start.
The worrying thing is it obviously Christmas period coming up, so I know they're playing Saturday, Tuesdays, but like you say, when you play high intensity football as well, which you always say they seem to play, coming up to Christmas, you would think you're getting more injuries, isn't you? Because you can't get any of the players back in, surely.
We're hopefully getting Scully back before the end of the year, and hopefully getting Tom Hopper back, but I doubt, mate, it's such an... Mike Lapis trying to play, he's got the wrong kind of players for the system. Like, we had George Grant and we had Brenham, 2 attacking midfielders, we lost both of them, we did.
Yeah.
And he brought defensive-minded players playing a counter-attacking football. When you look at Lincoln, we will get wingers crossing the ball into the box. We've got a striker there, but no one else is supporting him. And it's so easy for a team to pick us off when you've got one guy in the box. We've got 2 CDMs playing and a deep midfielder. There's no one support. The wingers are playing too wide. When you look at Lincoln, we play 4-3-3 most weeks. If Scully's on the left, he's so far left, it's like in the stands. You got like this Chris Maguire trying to cross the ball to no one really. It's just the way we play. And
So if you were a manager then, David, how would you turn it around? What would you do? What formation would you play? No, I don't want to know personnel. What formation are you playing?
I think we have to go 3-5-2. I think we have to go more on the offense. I think we need goals. The lads have got no confidence in front of goal. We need more attacking players on the pitch. We need more up there. We need relieve the pressure from the defence. Because we're trying to soak pressure the defences, but the defence just can't handle it. We've got no leaders in there. I think the weekend our defence was under the age of 22. I think it was. Like from goalkeepers stuff like that, and we've got no leaders in the team. Like Bricko's our captain, but he doesn't like a leave out exam, doesn't score, rarely assists. He doesn't exactly act like a captain. He's not taking. When you look in the media, he doesn't take responsibility. He's not standing up for the lads. He's not saying something's wrong. He's just going, "Oh, just stick with it. Everything will be fine." When in reality, nothing is fine. Like we were linked with a new centre back in January, which I'm thanking the Lord for that. We were getting a guy from the Irish League One. He's an under 21s Irish centre back. So. Hopefully that might fix some of the leaks. Here we go. But the weekend, another thing, we had Sean Rouse on the bench. I think he's a fullback he is for us. He was sat on the bench, and I couldn't understand why. He's fully fit, he is. He was sat on the bench. He's started out a striker. Freddie Draper's 18. Only played 3 games for Lincoln. He has. I couldn't understand why. He was playing Bramwell, our left back, at centre back. He had Robson, our other fullback, on the bench with 2 defenders on the bench, and I couldn't understand why he was going for such a weak defence against a team that just. I know Cheltenham lost things 5-0 to Sunderland, but I think he should have tweaked that a bit better because when we saw the last minute of the game, we just don't clear the ball. Every time we get the ball, we clear it and it's sort of like up in the air more than anything else, and we just don't get rid of it.
So close to a win, though, I guess, weren't it?
I think that we knew. I knew we weren't. I went saw that. I knew we weren't going to hold on. I think that if we had won like more games, we started scoring more. I think we would have held out. But the problem is that team's so inexperienced. If we had Joe Walsh in there, even though. Injury-wise, he's not the best, but he's such a leader and he's such a key part. Even Jackson's not even a leader. But I think we need signing some proper, like, older players. He's going for the youth route with no one really supporting with, like, a role model. When you look at Liverpool, they've got Milner, surrounded by youngsters. But when you look at Lincoln, everyone's under the age of 24, 25, and being the oldest player is being Walsh, who spends more time in the treatment room.
Yeah.
And I think he hasn't got the balance in the team yet, and he's just keep promoting, and he's like forcing youngsters into the team, like sitting him on the bench just to fill up the squad. But when they play, they just don't look. When we faced Barrows and Pitts, that was like a really mostly youth squad, but they're so like average players. Like they're more CDMs, and we haven't got many attacking players on Lincoln's books. We haven't. And when you look at Max Sanders, when you look at someone like Draper's another example, players like that, Lonergan, they're starting well. Like even Sam Long, our goalkeeper, they're starting well, but there's no real fixed team. We haven't known because we look. Griffith's going to go back eventually to West Brom.
Yeah.
We've got Minair going back to Norwich as well, so I'll just leave Sam. It will. With the defenders, we've got like TJ's tackle a couple of weeks ago. Forget the red card. It's showing the lack of just support around the club. It is like. I think the owners have got to take responsibility as well because they're not that they're acting like everything's okay. Like I think Scully, chief executive, is like saying, "Oh, nothing's wrong, everything is fine." When the reality is we can't pay for a stadium, can't pay for a squad. The manager's just said he doesn't care about success. He doesn't, and they're just not seeing the like nothing being said. We haven't scored since October, but expecting the fans to pay all the money they are to see us have no shots on target every game, to look very lacklustre, to keep losing, and I just can't stand. Why is not taking steps?
Especially when, like you said, I think the key word there you're saying is a step. So you were so close last year to going up, and then you're expecting to kick on again, aren't you? That's the thing that you expecting as fans to kick on, and it hasn't happened. But that's been a football fan, mate, isn't it?
Oh, but like I saw a stat of the weekend. If we lost at the weekend, if we didn't score at the weekend, we would have hit the worst point in Lincoln's career. Would have been. And I can't imagine a Lincoln being worse than they are at the moment.
But hopefully it turns around, mate.
I really hope so. But we're going to continue with the interview now, and I've got some more questions for you. So, when you look at like strikers, like we were talking about Clove and people like that, say a striker just score goals. But for you, so how do the coaches want you to play on and off the pitch? How do they want you to did they want you dropping deep like Ivan Toney did, or did they want to play you more like a target man, like a striker?
I think it's like dependent on what manager you're playing in. So towards the when I broke through at Norwich and things like that, to when I went to Peterborough, I was more of a different player in the sense of I was one of the people that played on the shoulder. So I used to play with with someone called James Quinn who played for Northern Ireland, and the Norwich players were more the target men, if you know what I mean. So throughout my career, it was sort of, I think my early start of my professional career was more playing on the shoulder, getting in behind. But then I think when you get a little bit older, you get injuries and things like that. I think it sort of changes. So my last professional club was Newport, and that my role changed there. So when we got promoted, I played on like the left of the three up front, but I sort of had a free role and things like that. So it depends what sort of manager you want to play or what the manager wants to play, and it just changes like that really. But the amount of things you work on in training, you know how to play every single position on the pitch really.
Yeah, it's interesting because like when we talk to like people like say a striker should say to score goals, it's just interesting how they want to play you. Because we look at Firmino for Liverpool, how he's not the one who gets goals, he's more like the person to drop deeper, and it's more Salah and Mane getting the goals. But it's interesting how they wanted you to play.
Well, that's it, and that's the thing. Like it does change, and there's different roles for different people, isn't there? So it depends what formation you play and how the manager wants you to play. I was never really going to be a target man, so to speak. I didn't play it well, but I did play as a number 9. I think, to be fair, when I played on the shoulder and made runs from behind, I think that's why I scored so many goals when I was younger, from 20 to 25 to 20. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I had so many opportunities to score goals. Was that they're the ones I was making? I had some fantastic players behind me, but when I got older in Newport, the role changed. But still, I only scored like 5 goals. But I think that season, like the manager, that always used to say to me, so I used to get worried because I wasn't scoring goals, like you said. Strikers normally score goals, but he used to say to me, if you keep assisting and things like that, I felt I got about 15 assists, but I only scored 5. But
Just keeping consistency, isn't it?
it's how people want you to play, isn't it? Yeah, that's how it is.
So another question is like why and how did you become a coach, and what things shaped you for your career to turn you into the coach you are?
I've done my coaching badges. I started when I was at Luton, so I knew I was 25, 26, so I knew the sort of next step was going to happen. So a lot of the lads were doing like apprenticeships or like going to late night colleges to do like electricians, plumbers, building, all that sort of stuff. But I watched staying football really because that's all I've ever known. So I've done my level 2 when I was at Luton, and I went to Newport. They've got fantastic education up there. So I've done an intense course for 8 days on the Welsh UEFA B. I was doing bits with the Newport Academy as well, so that helped me do that. I also done my A licence with them. thought what made me do it really was just seeing like some coaches in the lower leagues. I'm not going to say names and things like that because the managers I all worked for were amazing. But some of the coaches I didn't think was very good. So the managers were always so good. But I see the coaches in the lower leagues and I just thought I could do that. I still hope one day I'll be able to get an opportunity to do it. It's just biding my time and things like that. I'm doing this at the minute to gain experience. To be quite honest, it's quite an easy job to do really, just coaching boys who want to improve but also just want to develop their education as well. So it's not football, you know, you get sacked, I could go somewhere and get sacked like the next week, so it's one of them. I do want to do that, but with this it's quite comfortable, to be honest.
That's interesting to listen, because when you look at some of the older players like from around where you were, like didn't think the next step. When you look at some some interviews people do, like they didn't take the next step, and when you were around, there weren't as many opportunities as they are now. When you look at Ben Foster, we were talking a couple of weeks ago on our channel about him going to YouTube. When you look at doing more analysts, more media, because that's more of a main point nowadays for players to do.
Well, that's what I've done. Like when I my A licence helped me get the job at Leighton Orient. So Justin Edinburgh was my manager at Newport, and he took me to Leighton Orient to do the match analysis. I rang him one day when I was sort of a bit down and didn't know what was next. And he said one of his analysis guys gone over to America, so what I'll do for the rest of the season. I've done it, and if someone offered me that job now in football, it's something I'll do because it was brilliant. I used to speak to Justin every Monday. Obviously Leighton Orient, they got promoted as well that year, so there's loads of different fields to do in football, but I think with all the coaching and all the managers, it's the same people getting the jobs, and that's why I think it's so hard to get difficult to get into it. Someone like a goalkeeper like Ben Foster, he'll easily, because of the career he's had and people speak so highly of him as a person as well, he'll always get a job in football because of the career he's had. He'll be a goalkeeper coach, won't he? Do you know what I mean? He can get that. But when you play lower leagues, you're fighting against these players who had a better career than you, and the same people are getting the same jobs. So you've got to start somewhere. So I'm just now waiting on a friend of mine in football who's potentially going to get a job and hopefully take me in, whether it's full time or not. I'd like to start part time, to be honest.
There's a lot when you look how the National League's getting better nowadays, it's being better funded, I think it is, and better more understanding of the leagues now. When you look at it being National League, North, South, and normal National League, and it's been being part time. When you look at Matt Reed, you can talk about he's gone part time now with Accrington, but it's interesting that the Football League still needs more development, like we've talked about. That was technology and stuff. When you look at that handball in that game about 3 weeks ago, it was a triple handball, nothing was seen because of ref and full official. But it's interesting how, like you're saying, your career and stuff like that, you can do well. You're just looking for jobs and opportunities, and there's a lot of teams out there will eventually take you because a lot are looking for coaches and looking for someone a cheaper option. I'm not saying you do that, but
it's experience as well. So my own experience really is I've had opportunities. I've done little bits at Norwich, but it weren't for me to scout in the academy. I enjoyed it. The people there are fantastic and they help me develop. But I like the men's sort of game, and it's one of them where I hope it does come along, but you need experience. I've applied for jobs before in the past when I finished professionally, so I finished when I played for Lowestoft and things like that. I applied for jobs, but people didn't get back to you, and it's one of them where do you keep applying, getting pushed back or not and getting any replies? It's sort of demoralising really, and it's something I've learnt now. I'm 35. It's one of them where you just got to put yourself out and just network with people really. And that is key in football and in life. But what happens, I don't know. Hopefully something does happen. I like to think it does. If I've got plans in place. If it don't happen, maybe going abroad, maybe doing something and trying something different for me and my family really.
That's interesting. We'll move to something else now. So if you could have any strike partner, if you had any striker to be your strike partner, who would you have out of any striker in the world?
In the world, probably my favourite player ever is R9 Ronaldo. So the Brazilian Ronaldo, he's my favourite player. He'd be, I wouldn't even get on the same pictures with him. No, he's the best thing that's ever happened, I think.
Another question is who was the best striking partner you had in your career?
I had a few. That's the thing. I didn't play very often with Dean Ashton, in the league fixtures and things like that. But in training, when we used to look at just little things like small solid games or whatever it is, he was just for me. People, I spoke about it to my mate with the weekend. He's better than Harry Kane. was such a good footballer. So he'd be up there, but then the one who I scored probably the most goals was with James Quinn at Peterborough. He was a big target man, Northern Irish international, helped me develop, and yeah, he was someone I loved playing with because I think I scored like 26 goals that season with him.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, like how strikers, like when you rarely see two striker formations now. It's more wingers or cams. You rarely see two strikers together, and it's in.
You get it at Burnley, don't you? I think you get it not as much lower league now. I think towards the end of my career, obviously we all grew up playing 4-4-2 and playing two strikers was very good. But when you go 4-3-3, and like you said, you are the main focus point. I do like playing two strikers just because I think, like you said earlier with Lincoln, just having bodies in the box. Not many wingers want to get in the back post and score an header, in my opinion. So that's why I like a 4-4-2. You are completely right in what you're saying.
I think with Lincoln, when in the past, when we had Danny Cowley, we used to have really big players. We used to play 4-3-3, but we've had like Matt Green on the left, who was a striker, Matt Reid up front, and we had someone like Arnold and Anderson across the ball. We had centimetre from getting busts into the box down Michael O'Connor, Pet, people like that, and that's why we score so many goals. Like someone like Matt Reid was pushed out to the right, so it was right forward, or we played counter-attacking footballs with I think it was Arnold, Anderson, Andrade, people like that. That's how we got so many. That's why we got so far. It's how we played. And nowadays, when you look at Lincoln, when you look at some teams, they don't have a national lower leagues. You don't see like many crosses now. Really, it's more on the ground.
But the thing is, as well now, like you said about Liverpool, Man City, they play without a striker. They ain't got number 9, have they?
It's in ways. It's developing. And
that's how it's going. Yeah.
another question: how has like analysis changed for you over your career? Because when you look at was it Martinez? When you look at that documentary he did of the World Cup, like all that analysis now, how has it changed for you now in your career?
Well, when I first started out, obviously at Norwich it was everything spot on. So still what it is now, obviously the technology is different, but Norwich it was proper analysis and still in depth. Then you're talking 20 years ago, 20 odd years ago. But now, when I played, I remember like you never used to watch games like League Two. Didn't watch games, didn't watch them back particularly. And then what they'd do is they'd always just have like a board, like a whiteboard like that, with the players 1 to 11, their names, the numbers, their height, how like rating 1 to 5, how good they are in the air, just little bits of information like that. But even that, it did work. Do you know what I mean? So we can do all this analysis, we can do all this sort of stuff, but little bits of information like was on that whiteboard was key. And that changed towards when I was at Luton and we used to watch games, and then you went to Newport and there was analysis sessions and things like that. I don't know where it's going to go, but I do see why it's so important. If I ever got a job, or the details and what they go to is brilliant, and this is something why we do this programme. Do you know what I mean? For these reasons.
It's interesting for me, like, because I was watching the Belgian documentary, like, Martinez had that, so many graphs of those, like, he was picking his squad for the, I think it was the World Cup or the Euros thing it was, and he had every single Belgian player there, what they could do, how fit they were, what they could do in 90 minutes, and all the analysis team there. It's really interesting watching it. Was for me, it's interesting, like, developing my own analysis skills is like, because it's just been recently, like, with all new technology and stuff, like, for me, it's understanding, like, now how strikers play, like having a different view on how players should play. It's interesting for me. It is like when I did the France game for you. It's interesting when you explain that to me how to do in and out possession, and now with me for seeing it, it's a lot more interesting. And for me, when I do eventually do the analysis or something like that, the technology's gonna be a lot better for me. It is eventually, and it'll be interesting to take that forward a bit.
Well, it was actually, to be fair, like touching on that, you're right in what you're saying. So when we was in the conference, you not I think it's called Y Scout. So all the football league games you can watch on Y Scout, but I think the conference you couldn't. So when I was going to them games, everything was paper written like that. So everything. So I used to, like, every Sunday, so I'd do the game, write it down on a notepad, and on Sunday I'd draw it up. And I'd done about 8 pages on the computer. But as soon as we got promoted to League 2, I could use Y Scout as a digital platform. So there's so many, like you say, from like just a non-league, there's still some professional clubs in it. Don't have that technology with the League 2, League 1, but I think them jobs at the minute for the meantime, that's why I'm not involved in it. That's why Leighton Orient sort of let me go, because there's no budget at the minute with the COVID and all the times and things like that.
To be fair, like we look at the EFL and the lack of funding it has at the moment. When you look at like basic things on there, like goal line technology, the standard of refereeing. When you look at, I'll take Lincoln Blackpool as an example. The referee we got was a championship referee, one of the lower championship referees. But in a pre-season game, we had a Premier League referee. We had a top Premier League referee refereeing a pre-season game. And how does that feel for you? Like knowing the standard of football, official wise and stuff like that, the technology is not fully there for the EFL, but for Premier League it is. And even though some like EFL tech clubs have got the standard, the size of stadium, stuff like that, and have got funding to do this.
Well, I think I've been reading about the EFL wanting to break away from the Premier League and they want to start their own sort of committee, don't they? You can see why. But the Premier League's obviously all that money they don't care about. They don't care about lower league clubs. And you can see that when the COVID times happened, no one really stepped in to help the EFL clubs, and all these clubs, and even like in the conference, I think it was Dover won it, Dover went bust, and all that sort of stuff. So I think the committee is needed for the EFL, and I think you need the right people in place who've played in it, all the leagues. Do you know what I mean? You need people dotted all over the country as well. Like the FA have all these little hubs, like we're at one now. The EFL need to do something like that.
Another thing such as that is when you look at point deductions, and for me, I don't see the point deductions in the EFL because even Derby, for example, they're going to be relegated to League One, and at the same time, they still need to pay the debts back. But you're taking away the way of funding. I'm not saying they should be like scot-free, but they should be working with teams like Derby, and helping them pay the debts, not trying to keep punishing them. They're punishing the players, the owner, the manager. They're punishing like people who are not the fans for something they haven't done. I think when you look at League One teams, they get pointed out. I can't understand why they're making life worse because the more likely to go like bankrupt, owner's going to go.
Well, they're trying to punish the owner, aren't they? But the only people they're punishing are the fans, really, and the players. So the owner's the one who's put money in and hasn't got any money out, or he's getting money out and not I don't know what he's done, but yeah, there's got to be rules in place that stop that from happening because the only people getting punished are look at Sunderland, all this sort of stuff. People get punished for a committee sort of I don't know what they've done, corrupt sort of what they're trying to do. And you're right in what you're saying. The fans are the main ones. The fans aren't probably going now to support the club.
Just touching on it, like when you're a fan, you think how look at Derby, for example, how well they're doing. And if you're like a Bury fan as well, like the EFL, I don't know how you can lose an EFL club like that. The EFL,
big club as well.
Yeah, like you can't. If that's the Premier League, Premier League are not going to lose a Premier League team, are they?
No.
But the EFL managed to almost lose Bolton, Bury, and to people like that, they haven't got the rules aren't there for the EFL. They're like strong. They've got some strong rules on some things, but some on other things, and the salary cap now has been introduced. It looks like back again for League One, League Two, but not for the Championship, and it's punishing teams like, especially for like Lincoln. If Lincoln did get promoted, we would have such a weaker squad that we're going to more likely go down. And what do you think to the salary cap then? How do you think now? Because there's been a lot of limited funds going towards League One, League Two now.
I think it's difficult. I don't understand why it's just League One, League Two clubs. I think, like you say, the only difference it's going to make with the committee coming in who just protect the clubs and protect the players really, because I weren't playing when there was salary caps and things like that. I was in the conference and the clubs I played for there, it was good money and it was a good fan base, but I don't know how you change it. I think it's changed so much with football in the sense of there's so many non-league clubs throwing money at people, cash, and everyone knows it. All these committees, they all know that these players are getting cash and they can't do nothing about it. And this is why players from League One, League Two will go down to the conference or lower, because they can get just as much money playing a rubbish standard part-time than playing like in a League One, League Two club. So the salary caps, I don't think is fair. And I think if someone wants to invest in a club, I don't know, say like a Lincoln, there's a big investor that will come in. It doesn't matter how many fans you get, whether you get 5,000, 10,000, whatever it is, or sponsorship deals. If he wants to throw money in it, he should be allowed to. There's caps at Salford now, isn't there? But Salford, they'll have ways around it going in. Then players will be on a lot of money.
And also, what about the councils? I mean, look at, I think Darlington's an example of that. They can never get promoted because the council won't give them funding to upgrade the stadium, right? But they need a certain size stadium to go into the National League. They do. What do you think about Darlington? When you look at how good Darlington were back in the old days, but now look where they are on teams. What do you think councils could do as well to help like EFL teams, like with stadium upgrades and stuff like that? How do you think they can help as well?
I think you just got to support it, haven't you? I think like everyone says about Man City and all the Saudi, they're the best team in the world, aren't they, and things like that. But if you look what he's done for that community, it is a community play. And you hear Gary Neville on his podcast, you hear all these people talk about what Man City have done. I don't know what his name is, but what the community is, a community football club now, and that's what I think all these lower leagues and all these councils need to do. Most kids, if you like for instance in Norwich, West Vegas, you're gonna have so many footballers or aspiring footballers in there. That's what we've got to support. I don't think it's necessary to support the football club. I think it's supporting the people around it, really.
I think I was watching a game the weekend with my dad, and it's interesting. We looked at the stadium, and it's got most like leagues. He said got a one-tier stands there, really, or they've got like concrete steps. I mean, like another example, or they've got a car park behind the stands, and you can't like understand why the council won't give funding for that. It's not like it's 5 people going to a game. It's like tens of thousands of people going, and they can use the ground for other purposes. When you look at the Tottenham Stadium, they use that for American football games, concerts, and I think if the council's invested, it would be interesting where football will take. If the EFL do break away, it needs to be everyone, and there needs to be councils buying into this. It needs to be owners buying wanting this as well, because there's no point breaking away. The rules aren't there, the council aren't supporting them, and stadium standards sort of drop. And an example like Lincoln at the moment, we're finally getting authorisation to get one of our, I think it's the Stacey West stand upgraded. We've got new housing being built around Lincoln now, but it's not coming from the owners. And most owners, when you think about investment groups in the EFL, most teams aren't owned by owners, owned by lots of investment groups, owned by, like, we've got the Co-op stand, we're owned by Mini, we're sponsored by Mini, all the kind of, and American owners. What do you think to investors, and how far do you think investors can take, like a club like Lincoln's or something like that?
Oh, man, you ask me these questions. Councils, investors, I don't know, you tell me. I don't know, you know more about it than me, clearly.
It's just interesting because your point of view, because when you were around, you didn't really have to think about.
You don't need to think, but yeah, you didn't need. Players will not be thinking about things like that, and you're completely right. That's why this committee and things like that is important, to get the right people in place in what everyone you're saying, whether it's council, investors, whoever it is. But it's all about sponsorships, isn't it? From the Premier League downwards, to see Peter Crouch at Dulwich and Hamlet, whatever it is, and he's getting that club like sponsorship deals, all that sort of stuff. So I don't know how the investors and all that sort of work, but people who have money seem to go into football clubs, don't they? Which is not a bad thing.
Let's push away from that, because that's another topic for another day for when I do it. So, who was your football idol growing up?
Ronaldo. CR. No, not him. C9. C9? R9. Ronaldo. Brazilian Ronaldo. Everything about him. Loved him. Just thought he was brilliant. But the English one would be probably like someone like Shearer or Robbie Fowler to centre forward. Obviously, everyone loved David Beckham and things like that, but I loved Robbie Fowler, to be honest.
Yeah, for me, I think it was when I was growing up. I was like a lot of Chelsea games, so it was like for me, it was Czech, like what he did and his ability. Then when I more going to Lincoln, it was Paul Farman after meeting him, stuff like that, and Matt Reed. Yeah. That day meeting Matt Reed before we went to the dressing room, like meeting someone like that. And
why do you love Matt Reed? Tell me why you love Matt Reed, because this is all you talk about. Tell me why.
I just think I got to meet him. I met him 3 times. What he did for the club.
Is he a nice guy?
Yeah, he was really nice. He talked to me and my dad. He was going into the dressing room and he stopped and talked to my dad. I got a photograph with him. He had about a 5-minute talk with us. He did. Nice. I met a load of Lincoln players, and they have time. I met Josh Vickers a few times. We went back, I think, a year later, and he said, "Do you remember me?" And Vickers said, "Yes, I do." And I met Grant. I met Jade. I met Danny Cowley. People like this who remembered you, like, and that's why I like Lincoln. That's why Matt Reed is such a key part, because when I was growing up, that's the guy who was scoring goals for Lincoln. That was why I like him. Like, if you look at Man City fans, they all like Aguero. We look at Barca fans, they all like Messi or Ronaldinho. For me, I support Lincoln, and for me, I have to back the players we had. I can't back a player that we didn't have. And one of our biggest players is Gareth McCauley. You can't exactly call that.
Good centre half, though, wasn't it?
It was good for us back in the day when he came to us. We had a lot of good players. We had Matt, for goalkeepers, we've had Matt Gilks, we've had Vickers. Like I said, we've had Neil Edley. We've had just people like with experience. It's been interesting. We've also had Jimmy Walker, who came. He was signed on for us in the FA Cup run. That's why I like Matt Reed, because even though according to I think it was in the League 2, I think it was, he was being played. Then we weren't winning games because we already won. The mentality he was getting booed, but Matt Reed kept still going on. I remember a game I went to, we're playing, he's literally on halfway line winning the ball, and he's just running it. He's just, even though he's not the fittest guy, he will go for 90 minutes. He will put tackles in. When we look at Burnley game, he got man of the match against Burnley did, and he tackles Joey Barton. Like Danny Cowley was speaking on the tactics thing on YouTube. He was about how he sets the games up. He said Matt Reed was key for the games because he put him on the halfway line. He won the balls, he won headers, he won stuff like that, and that's why I like Matt Reed, because he's a second time on a goal scorer, and he just embraced the Lincoln. He stayed with us, he fought, and when he left, it was just sad because a lot of the fans like him. When we get the money in about another 500 years' time, we'll get a gold statue of Matt Reed outside the ground.
Matt Reed, what a player.
So another question is, what was the best England team you've seen, like growing up?
Just got to be one now, isn't it? Really. I think like everyone talks about like the Gerrards, Lampards, and all them sort of people, which quite clearly didn't like each other. I think what Gareth Southgate's done now as an England fan, I think every other summer we all get together and obviously as fans it's amazing to watch. I don't think you can beat, in my lifetime, this is the best I've seen. Obviously I was younger when Gascoigne and people out in it, so I can't remember it, but this is the best English squad I've seen. Phil Foden mainly.
I know what my dad's going to say about this. Honestly, I know what my dad's squad is.
He's 70.
Yeah, 1966, my dad's squad is.
Of course, I want a live then, mate. I can't say him.
we don't know your age, mate. Honestly, you're lying. But I'm saying, like, for me, like, growing up, like, when my dad talking about, like, his age, like, he was talking about football, like, the older footballers, and it's interesting for me, like, comparing, like, nowadays style of football compared to then, and it's just interesting, there's, like, how football's developed with the balls, like, just
do you think your dad thinks that 1966 team would be this team?
I think when you look how Ralph Ramsey set the team up, he coached each player individually, did, and when you look at the standard of the team, like, they set up like they could. If it wasn't for Banks in '66, we would have lost. And we had such a good squad. Sir Ralph Ramsey built a team of players who he wanted. Like we had a guy who was like halfway down the team with Everton. We had centre backs like we had Jack Charlton, people like this. And I will do going to do an England video soon on the channel about some of the players you haven't heard of from '66 squad, like Cohen, people like that. For me, it's important for you guys, like online, if anything like two people watch it, it's me to give some more appreciation to the England squad. When you talk about England's '66 squad, the main names coming to mind is Hurst, Moore, Banks. You don't think of any more, you can't think of another 22 players that went to that squad, can you? Because when people talk about the best England centre-backs, you think of like Terry, Ferdinand, Moore, but you don't think like people like Jack Charlton. And this is what I want to bring to the channel. I want to do things that interest me as a footballer. I want to give light to like Jack Charlton, Cohen, people like that, and who did well for England squad. And like when you look at Ron Springer as well, he was the third choice goalkeeper there. I want to do videos like that, and it's interesting doing with Danny here, just talking about the questions we've done with him, and it's nice like having the opportunity to speak to you, like bounce points off you, like speak to like some of the lads here about football. It's just like seeing another side of football, and for me, I just love football. Like talking about it. It's nice seeing different aspects, like me doing like media now. I just love to try and get my interview techniques down now, so it's interesting for me.
I think you're very good at it, mate, to be fair.
Thank you.
You're very good.
So another question is like, how did you get the job on the course?
On this course?
Yeah.
I was playing for Lowestoft, and then they had something come up, so when I dropped out of the game, I went to Lowestoft, and I had a little part-time job as well, still coaching, which was like CSF and things like that. This was before I think I finished my I was getting my A licence, and then something like this arose, and yeah, I jumped at the chance. It's been really good. It's been a good 5 years, massive learning curve, and you know, football clubs wouldn't know how much of a learning curve this is going into the actual professional or part-time environment. This is more than I need to learn. This is very testing every day.
Yeah, it's interesting for you because I've seen like, where you played in the Prem, like the EFL. It's interesting how you came on this course. Like, it's always interested me like why you came here and stuff like that. And it's quite interesting. Like
the biggest point is I think Tom Campbell said it, didn't he? So obviously anyone around this area, if you're not playing for Norwich, you're not playing for Ipswich. You know, you've got your lower league teams. No disrespect to them, but that's all you've got around it. That is it. And I knew there's so many players out here. I've got lads out on trials. Made things happen for a few lads, or lads going to New Zealand, Australia, America, playing the sort of best level they can do. There's a lot of talented people around here, but people don't really see it. But that's why I know there's so many scouts now coming to Norwich, not just to watch Norwich City, but to watch grassroots football.
Because just for Lincoln as well, like we got Sam Long from, I think it was we got him from, he was playing Sunday League football, so we got one of the lads from. And how do you think scouting networks are working now? Because more teams are promoting youth now. I mean, look at Liverpool's squad, Man City's more youth is coming through now than experience. So how do you think that is helping like younger English players now?
I think it's changed now. Because also I went into it in Norwich and I was doing, my age group was 12 to 18 year olds, so I now know the pressures that these scouts are under. There's grassroots to JPL leagues, to Youth Alliance leagues. No one wants to miss out on players. So I was brought in to basically look at the Cat 2, Cat 3s in East Anglia, and if someone got signed from one of them clubs and I didn't say their names, at least they could hold me accountable for it. So there's a pressure to it in what I felt in my role, and I think no one wants to miss out. So there's a lad from Norwich who goes sign for anyone else in England, the grassroots coach would be asked, why is that lad not playing for Norwich City? So there's so much pressure. There's so many scouts there every single Saturday, Sunday, Wednesdays, Thursday nights. There's so many scouts there.
But another thing is, like, when we look at Danny Cowley was talking about, I think it was about 4 years ago, saying that you can't field many youth players now in the EFL, like in League 1, League 2. What do you think the EFL can do for League 1, League 2? Because Danny Guy was saying we had a squad sorted, and he could only put, I think it was 3-4 youth players on the bench now, he got in the team. How do you think that is like hindering like youth players now going through League 1, League 2?
I think men's football, an example I've got, I think it was my second from last year from Newport, we played Aston Villa. Jack Grealish played and a lad from Preston, Johnson is it, centre mid. We played them and I think they absolutely boxed us off the park. Like, we won 4-5-0. And I remember Justin saying like none of them will play lower leagues. It was Grealish who's gone on to play whatever he is. But what I took from that is all this academy football, unless you're not playing for anyone like 17 to 21, I think it's going to be very, very difficult for you to play for that actual club. So League 1, League 2, how I'd see it is you best just put them in a conference or a conference south.
That's what
play men's football.
I think that's what Lincoln are doing. Was like we sent Sam Long to Trinity. We had Max Melbourne at Stevenage. We had players like that now. Arsenal loan and way Michael Clapton loans players out. It's not going in well for them at the moment. But he's another talk for another day because or his media stunts. But how do you think managers approach media now? There's another thing. It's like when you look at Michael Clapton, I don't know if I'd anywhere near a media room, let alone a stadium. But how do you think, like when you look at some managers a bit standing out of the now, but some are more energised than us? How do you think that's changed?
I think it's the pressure. I think there's any slip up now of all social media, all the nonsense that comes from social media. Any slip up from any sort of manager, coach, player. Like you look at Harry Maguire the other week. You know, he stood up and he came out and I admire someone that done that. But I know he got crucified, he's rubbish, Roy Keane, all that sort of stuff. But it's all what the media pundits. But you know, Roy Keane's been there. Gary Neville, all these people. I listened to Gary Neville's podcast the other day, and he said he regretted slating someone. I think it's Paul Pogba. No, well, who was it? He slated someone anyway, and you see him a couple of weeks later. So the media and these managers that go into all these meetings, especially when they lose, it is tough. But this is why I think something like this that you're doing, and they do it in professional football clubs, media training, all that sort of stuff, because they know the amount of pressure you're under. And it is quite nerve-wracking, and I can't imagine what it's like for them Premier League managers, because anything they say, anything wrong, you get sacked, or you're going to get crucified from the press.
Yeah, you've got me, the media at the moment. It's not like my skills are the best, but when you look at the EFL, like, more people have bit more freely to talk. When you look at Michael Clapton comes to mind, what he can say every bloody week, honestly, it's shocking. But it's...
Yeah, like you say, no one sees that.
No.
But when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's losing most weeks, but he's a legend, he still comes out and he still has to speak. It's very, very difficult.
But it's nice, like, the media has changed a lot now and it's a lot worse to players, and it's just a bit discouraging, I think, for some players. Like, they know they've got to give 100% on the pitch, otherwise they're getting what's going to happen afterwards is, and a lot of footballers nowadays like do give 100% now, and it's a shame to see like people get slating players, because for me, you see how I talk with you, like I put like Shelby in like a team of the week, and you go, why are you doing that? Because it's me, it's positional play. That's what I look at now.
Yeah.
But I know like other people would look at, say, Shelby as an example, will go, oh, he's terrible, he's only giving like 1% a game here, and that's, for me, it's just a people's opinion on football, isn't it?
It is, and I think, yeah, like you say, we've all got different opinions, and yeah, I think the media, so you'd rather be on the media side, just touching that again, the manager, why do you think they've only got, I think it's 5 minutes after a game and the manager has to speak to Sky Sports or BT or whatever? Why is that? Why do you think that is?
Just get like, you have to compact what the manager says down to get like more, like get more quotes out of it, won't they? The way he says.
So we're getting more emotion. So Jose Mourinho, he didn't take that nothing, didn't take no ball S, did he? So they do things for a reason. They don't know what the media do, but you can't slate them because it's good TV. I like watching it.
Yeah, for me, I like the interviews. I like it's just improving my technique, like I say, and it's nice seeing us on the Premier League after like on Sky Sports, seeing like after games. It's interesting, it is.
It is, yeah. I agree with you, mate.
And yeah, that's time for part 2 now. So I'll say thank you. I'm putting more videos onto Spotify now, and thank you, Danny, for talking to me for the 2 parts. It's been interesting, it has, and just keep liking, subscribing. I'll be doing more videos by myself, it looks like now. So just keep looking after that, and I hope you enjoyed today's video. And you bought.
I've noticed my nails are pink. Okay, my nails are pink because my daughter was up at 5:30 this morning and I needed 5 minutes peace, so please don't anyone get any ideas.
Oh.
This one I'm like this, so I'm like all that in my hands.
Yeah, he's not doing a Mbappe celebration over there. So.
No,
But anyway, thank you for watching Beyond from the Bench, and we hope to do more vlogging. I should be when I get my GoPro sorted out and doing more videos around. Next year will be now when I come back to college and stuff like that. But